everyone, and welcome back to yet another installment of our Hollow Knight lore series here on the Game Movie Jerks. Yes, we continue to upload on Saturdays rather than Wednesdays. Anyways, today I wanted to take a look at Monomon and Quirrell. And as always, there are indeed major Hollow Knight spoilers ahead. Let's start with Monomon. We actually don't know a lot about Monomon the teacher, as she is in her eternal sleep through the entire game until you kill her. However, we do know that she lived and worked in her archives. Here, she was able to store information in tubes. With these, she became the researcher and a teacher of Hallownest. These tubes have odd words inside when you read them. King Light and Old Light are two that most likely refer to the Pale King in the Radiance. Seal, Egg, and Dreamer is what I assume to be a description of the process of containing the infection. Vessel and Void are two that most likely refer to the vessels and, of course, the Abyss. A tank of charged lumaflies is in the archives as well, most likely being studied by Monomon. I assume it has something to do with Umu, as he also has electric abilities much like lumaflies. The weirdest thing about Monomon is that she is a jellyfish creature with tentacles. Many have questioned why jellyfish are in this game about bugs, and I question it too. Some think it is just a reference to Metroid simply because it was a massive inspiration for this game. Though this might be true, Team Cherry had to have connected it to the lore in some way. A simple explanation is that they are Monomon's offspring. Now, normally I would ask who she reproduced with, but since she is a jellyfish thing, I think it's fair to assume that she can create offspring herself. Now, this doesn't really align with what the hunter thinks about them. He is absolutely mystified by the existence of these creatures. In the entry for Auma, which is the small jellyfish, he says, "I have no idea what this is." In the journal entry for Uma, the bigger jellyfish, he says, "I don't trust them at all. Keep them away." Now, these both show that he is quite confused, but the journal entry for Umu is what confuses me. The end of the entry reads, "Be careful, strange and unnatural things lurk there." It's the use of the word unnatural that confuses me. Now, we all know that Monomon
is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
But seriously, why would he say this? To me, this means that Monomon has actually created them through science, not reproduction. This could also possibly explain Umu and what exactly it is. My speculation leads me to believe that Umu is the final version of the jellyfish, Monomon's final creation, a being of superior intelligence and power. That is really the only explanation for the jellyfish and the hunter's confusion. Another thing that links them to Monomon is that both enemies say Monomon when dream-nailed. Now, if Monomon is the only thing in their thoughts, I feel like she probably isn't their mother, but their creator. I don't know, but it is pretty weird, and honestly, I don't think it has a proper explanation yet. Of course, you could argue that the hunter doesn't really know anything, and he was just weirded out by them because they aren't bugs. You could also argue that Monomon being in their thoughts doesn't necessarily prove anything. I'm going to go undecided on this, because there really isn't enough evidence to prove anything. Now that we got the weird and unknown part out of the way, let's talk about something a bit less speculative. Quirrell. Specifically that he was Monomon's assistant, and entrusted with something very important. Quirrell's mask is actually added protection that Monomon enacted upon herself. The mask was made to undo this protection in case the seals ever needed to be undone. Quirrell ended up leaving Hallownest entirely, presumably because he sought to evade the infection. In the lands beyond Hallownest, outside of the Pale King's beacon of mind, Quirrell forgot almost everything about his past life. However, he was called back to Hallownest, probably by Monomon. Now, I say it was probably Monomon, unaware of how that would be possible, simply because I don't know who or what else would have called him back. Now, Monomon was pretty smart. I mean, she could store words inside of liquids. So I feel as though telepathy to Quirrell is in some way possible. At this point, Quirrell makes his way back to the kingdom of Hallownest. In the Howling Cliffs, he had a brief fight with Hornet, who ended up recognizing Quirrell's mask and letting him go. Quirrell was most likely confused by that, as I assume he no longer had any idea what that mask is. He journeys through Hallownest and eventually finds the archives and helps defeat Umu and break the seal upon Monomon. Now, it should be mentioned that Monomon truly wanted her seal to be broken, She was tired of a world forever unchanging. After doing this, Quirrell no longer had purpose. He did the only thing he set out to do. While in the City of Tears, Quirrell mentions that he'd like to see the source of all the rain. The source is obviously the blue lake above the city, and Quirrell sits there after helping you in the archives. This is the last time you see him. After you talk to him, he disappears. Really important question here. What actually happened to Quirrell, though? Alright, fine. I'm just gonna say it. Yeah, Quirrell is totally dead. Now, did he just kill himself with his nail, or maybe he did it by drowning himself? Nah, he definitely died of natural causes. See, Quirrell is pretty old. I mean, he's at least as old as the knight, probably older. At the Blue Lake, his dialogue seems to reflect this exact thing. He mentions how he has seen this kingdom twice over, and when dream-nailed he mentions that he lived in age. Even his actual voice lines sound out of breath and raspy. Another important thing is that he leaves his nail behind. Multiple times he mentions how important his nail is to him. When you first see him in the Black Egg, he mentions that your nail needs to be refined. In the Church to Un, in Greenpath, he mentions that your nail won't get you much further. Meanwhile, he sits, polishing his nail. He also hints towards seeking out a nailsmith when you talk to him in the Mantis village. There's absolutely no way that he would go anywhere without his nail. You could possibly argue that he is a changed bug and doesn't want to fight anymore. Okay, sure, but that doesn't mean he didn't die wherever he ended up going. The next piece of evidence is that the achievement you get when you talk to him at the lake reads, "Spend a final moment with Quirrell." A final moment? Sounds to me like he's dead. But the real question is what Team Cherry thinks on the matter. In an interview with Kokatu, Team Cherry was asked what happened to Quirrell.
Okay, next question. What happened to Quirrell?
We don't know.
Yeah, we're not sure.
Okay.
Now, we all know that Team Cherry is a bunch of liars, but come on, that's pants on fire. They absolutely know what happened to Quirrell. The piece of art for his nail stuck in the ground proves it. The name for that file is literally Quirrell Death Nail. Now, we can argue all day whether or not file names count as canon, but that proves what Team Cherry's intention is, or at least was. Anyways, we now all know that Team Cherry are liars, but more importantly, I'll see you guys next time on the Game Movie Jerks.